And welcome to Geeking Out. I'm Moose. I have the Sleaze with me here today.
You do?
Oh yeah. And as you can see as a title, or you can hear as a title if you're listening, this is going to be about the rumored KOTOR series on Disney Plus. Hopefully they make it. You know, we've been talking about it for literally like years that we want to see Knights of the Old Republic series or movie or hopefully actual canon books, etc. And this nice guy next to me is Darth Malgus.
You scary
He's
bastard.
scary. He's so scary. And he's definitely one of them that I would want to see more, books or info on. That'd be pretty awesome.
My first question is, so they're calling it Knights of the Old Republic, right?
Yes.
As far as I know. So are they going by the source of the video games alone, or are they going to go like Old Republic shit? You know, because I mean, technically, the Old Republic is a sequel to the Knights of the Old Republic, regular video games. So that was a big question I had.
Yeah, I didn't find, aside from just being a rumor and being on Disney Plus, possibly, there wasn't any specifics as far as like when or what they were covering.
Right.
But I assume that those games aren't really canon because Disney just wiped all that shit out. I mean, the current BioWare one might be the MMO, just because it's still running and stuff like that, but I'm not even sure if that's considered either.
I don't think it is.
So, I mean, obviously there was thousands of years before the movie, the episode 1, 2, and 3 that is actually canon. So it could be obviously any time in that timeline. So
if I'm not mistaken, I think Knights of the Old Republic was like 3,500 or 4,000 years before the Battle of Yavin.
Right.
That's almost like
that's the timeline or the time
AD/BC thing.
Right.
And then I want to say the Old Republic was about 1,000 years before that, if I'm not mistaken. So I mean, I don't think you're going to see Malgus with Revan, because he was long fucking dead. So that's the curiosity I have is out of all of this, because we're talking, book wise, we're talking about 1,000 years to 1,500 years of basic stories. But where are they? Are they going to start with the Old Republic and then maybe, make their way up to like the time of Revan, or are they just going to do Revan stuff?
I mean, if they do like what I really hope they do is the start of, like I mentioned last cast, basically the way the Jedi and, the Force users started out. They were all, united and just working together to learn about the Force and shit like that. I hope they start there and get to the point where the Sith and Jedi, or the Sith come along, even though they weren't really called Sith then, but they just, Force users came along that wanted more power and shit like that, and then the dark and light side separated and all that stuff. And they fast forward to some of these, more known people, or Sith or Jedi or whatever you want to call. Because if you think about it, if they have thousands of years to work with, this series could go on almost forever, depending what they want to do. And all of it would probably be pretty damn good as long as it's not really repetitive, for Star Wars fans, that is.
Well, see, I agree 100%. That's where I wanted to begin. I wanted to begin with the infancy of the Republic. You know what I mean? Because
right.
At that time, I don't think there was really like an established Sith. Maybe there was the Jedi, which was the precursor to the Jedi.
Right.
But almost at the same time, like everything was coming up. The Sith were building up to what they are, the Jedi as well, and the Republic. But that's a good idea too. There's years and years of storyline. I would love for the first season to be like the infancy of the Republic, and then maybe do a flash forward, to maybe the events of the Old Republic MMO, and then even like maybe season 3, then you flash forward to Revan and Malak and all that stuff. Because like you said, there's a lot of fucking many years to cover here that you could cover.
I mean, some of the highlights, which I'm sure I'll miss some because there's, you know, thousands of years. Just thinking off the top of my head with some of my, some of my notes as well. There's the Mandalorian Wars, which the Sith Emperor sort of brainwashed them into starting a fight with the Republic, and Darth Revan and Darth Malak sort of fought them back and won the war for the Republic. And then they turned to the dark side, went to the unknown regions, got their whole fleet and everything, and they attacked the Republic. So just that those couple stories, which again is, a good timeline, just right there could be a season or 2 or 3, just with
Right.
that little bit right there. And then obviously Revan eventually, I believe the story is, the Jedi captured him, and Darth Malak tried to destroy Revan's ship, and the Jedi found him and brainwashed him to pretty much forget the dark side.
Yeah.
And
And see,
and all
that
stuff.
story, if you're a diehard fan or you're a video game fan, you played the game, one of the best stories told, bar
Right.
none. But the thing is that diehard fans are going to be watching this, and we know what the end result is. It'd be, I know I'd want to see it, but at the same time, it's like, okay, well, I pretty much know the end result. Basically, Revan does redeem himself, and all that shit defeats Malik and da da da. And then there's a whole book in the series, The Old Republic, called Revan, that basically tells the story after the video game, after the first installment to the video game, because he wasn't in the second one. They talked about him a lot, but he had taken off.
Right.
But that story would be good too. I mean, I think their cash cow is going to be Revan. They'd be stupid not to make him a big focal point. But yeah, I mean that whole book would be a good idea too.
Is Darth Revan canon right now, though?
He is, but not in the whole video game, book sense.
So I
It's
know
basically, he was in what, Rebels, I think.
Revan.
He was in one of them, the Clone Wars or Rebels or.
Well, I know
whatever.
Bane was Revan,
Yeah.
though.
Right, but they don't really tell a story. They
Right,
don't
right. Same
tell
with
the
the Bane,
story.
yeah.
Story.
Just because I'm thinking, because a lot of people like sort of compare just the way Kylo Ren looks to Revan with the hood and the mask and all that stuff.
Yes.
So they think they sort of took part of Revan to make that character with, of course, one of the Skywalker or the Solos and all that stuff. So they think they pick and chose and threw a few people together to make Kylo Ren the way he is. I mean,
Well, yeah, there was a whole rumor and everything when The Force Awakens came out, because they called them the Knights of Ren, and they said maybe it was a different kind of way of saying like the Knights of Revan,
Right.
because they did look so similar to him, mask and everything. They all had similarities of Revan's mask. So maybe that might come out in episode 9, that this was really like a cult to Revan in a sense.
Well, I mean, to go back to the Bane books again and just what we know about Revan, he thought the, one powerful Sith was the way to go.
Right.
Which, Supreme Leader is obviously one Sith leading shit.
Right.
So technically it's sort of that way right now. Even though he's not considered a Sith, but you know what I'm saying? Dark side
Right.
or whatever.
Right.
I mean, going back to what you said earlier about knowing what happens, I mean, we knew what was going to happen with episode 1, 2, and 3 as well. And it was still, for the most part, enjoyable. And, I mean, I wouldn't mind them. And no matter what they do, we know what eventually happens because the actual movies are after the fact. Obviously, it'd be thousands of years for, Luke to come around and all that shit. But, I mean, I like to see, even if they kept it exactly how it is, there's good and bad with a lot of these characters and stories. and books and all that stuff, which I'm sure they wouldn't. They would put their own twist on things and take what they want. But I hope they definitely come out with, tell a few different stories of characters I like, and I'm sure I'm
Yeah,
gonna miss some.
yeah,
I just want to name a few before I forget. So definitely Darth Bane. We've already seen or said that multiple times. So that would be, only that'd be pretty close to relative current times, like 1,000 years before Episode 1 or so, around that
yeah.
time frame. Revan, Malik, we already named them two. Nihilus, which is another awesome Darth or Sith. Malgus, that is sitting next to me right now. He doesn't have many words to talk about, but he wants to be in a real thing. The Sith Emperor, that actually like lasted for like thousands of years, and kept on like bringing himself back. That'd be interesting. He supposedly, like, as far as like the line goes, is power level, like all time, it was like Sidious and then him. Like for
Yeah.
people's like countdown or whatever and all that crap. So it'd be interesting to see his real power. I mean, obviously a lot of Jedi that were around that time, like even the Hoth, General Hoth from the Bane books. He seemed like a pretty cool character. I hope Farfalla is not around.
He sucks.
He sucks. A lot of those Jedi in that book suck, or books suck. Just different Force users altogether, really. Because we mostly see Jedi and Sith. I think it'd be nice to see some other Force sensitive doing other shit and not one of those things.
Right. And I'd be very intrigued with the I forget the technical name they give him, but the Emperor, because there was, not to get onto episode 9 because you already did that, but I just read something very interesting, where they're saying again that Snoke and Plagueis have some kind of connection, because I guess there was some leaked story pieces, from episode 9, where Snoke, I guess, I don't know if it's a flashback or something like that, but I guess he has like a staff that Plagueis owned. And there's a lot of things that Snoke has that was owned by Plagueis.
Right.
So now they're doing the whole Snoke could be Plagueis thing. But they're making it sort of interesting with their whole, rumor thing, basically saying that it could have started from the Emperor. You know what I mean? That he stayed in the unknown regions and basically body hopped, through. You don't really see that in the MMO or anything, but they're saying like it's almost like a chosen one sort of thing, where one of them dies and they're reborn, and that's what they're saying. Almost, in a sense, the connection with Snoke and Plagueis, that it's all basically one entity that has been transferred, into different bodies. I'm not sure if they're going to make it like, he's conscious as Plagueis, inside of Snoke, but it's still part of, one entity.
I mean,
that's intriguing.
I mean, it's really not that far fetched. One, he was fucking with midichlorians like it was going out of style.
Right.
Two, you saw more. There's definitely more examples than this, but I'll give a few. You saw it. Well, you read in Darth Bane's book, essence transfer, which
Right.
is essentially you touch someone, turn, and you can put your essence into them. And you've seen it multiple other times as well, like in different books and read it different times and heard it and all that sort of stuff. So if he was really like into the midichlorians and all that stuff, maybe he unlocked that power. As
Right.
far as the book goes, it doesn't seem like it's that far fetched. And if he just did it to a bigger level than he even let Sidious in on, because maybe he, like I said, I think I said it last cast. Basically, he knew he was gonna kill him. He knew Sidious was gonna kill Plagueis.
Right.
So he didn't give him all the secrets. Like he gave him like enough to make him like think like it was everything, but it really wasn't. And he was just buying his time until he could come back. Of course, it's just a rumor and something we want to see, but it'd still be fucking awesome if it actually happened.
Well, yeah, and a lot of the little rumors I'm hearing from Episode 9, like J.J. Abrams is really putting some fucking depth into the whole. You know, it's going to make I think your outlook on the Force and individual people, and you know, when you die and how you can transfer your essence, and like he's really delving deep into that. It seems. But that would be cool, you know, if they sort of did a storyline like that, where it's, you know, the Emperor did live for thousands of years or whatever, but at some point maybe he's defeated or whatever and doesn't essence transfer, and it basically follows down to Snoke, you know.
Oh, so
Because,
you're saying Snoke's the Emperor?
yeah,
That'd be
I think
ridiculous.
the Emperor has been several Sith Lords through an essence transfer, a midi-chlorian fucking fuck around, you know, that basically he's bounced all the way down to Snoke.
Because
I
he
mean,
did, you know, the
that's sort
story
of what I was
goes.
getting from what I read today.
Yeah, the story goes he lasted for like thousands of years. Like, no, almost that it was immortal level. I forgot exactly how he, you know, died or whatever, according to people.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Because he was like so-called killed multiple times, and then he would just come back. Like, that was nothing.
Right.
And he's the one who turned Malik and Revan to the dark side. So he had some
Right.
serious power behind him, as far as this, you know, uncanon or whatever. But that'd be fucking sick if like the Emperor is really just owning, like, not Sidious. The old Emperor was, just to clarify shit for people, was just running shit this whole time.
Yeah.
That'd be nuts.
Yeah, and you know, people wanted a backstory to Snoke, and that's a pretty goddamn good one. You know, I did that. I feel like eventually maybe his original body just died, and it's not like cloning. You know what I mean? It's not like, okay, so I die, I clone myself, so an exact replica of me is going to be there. But it's almost like if I'm not mistaken, in the Plagueis book, didn't he when Plagueis killed his master, didn't he somehow get some of his essence in him? Or something like that. There was some kind
He
of fucking transfer.
tried to fuck with the midichlorians to keep him alive, but it was just like he wasn't practiced enough with it, so he ended up
Oh,
dying
okay.
anyway. But I don't think he took his essence necessarily.
Oh, okay. Maybe I was just fucking
But
mistaken.
Venomous, he like killed and brought back to life like 1,000 times before he finally
Yeah.
died. His organs gave out. So there's definitely some crazy Force shit that I haven't seen or heard before in that book. And again, that's not canon, so it's, you know, speculation or whatever. But it's still like not that far fetched if you think about it, with at least the stories that are there.
No, and if they do it right, like the way I was thinking of it, if you know you're a bad guy and I'm a bad guy, and you got this, let's say, you know, the dark side chosen one spirit or whatever the fuck in you, and it jumps into me. It's not like I become you, but I have a part of you in me, like your dark side essence and force, you know, and that can jump out of me when I'm dying into somebody else, and that's where I think they're going with the whole connection with, you know, Plagueis and Snoke. That maybe when he died from, I don't know, like that part of him went into another person.
Well, I'm really thinking about this shit now, pretty deep. Um,
It's a good
if you
fucking premise, you know.
Well, I'm even going to go a little bit further, not further necessarily timeline wise, but just further into it a little bit. A few things. In the Clone Wars, and they came back in Rebels as well. There's a father, son, and daughter. Daughter was light side, son was dark side, father was like the balance.
Right.
And going back, talking to George Lucas, not me personally, obviously, but what he wanted episodes 7, 8, and 9 to be was about the wills and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
And supposedly he's like, he's helping episode 9 move along.
Right.
Like in, you know, not an official title sort of thing, but just saying this is what I wanted, and who knows what's happening behind the scenes, but.
Well, he's like an advisor
Right.
to JJ, basically.
Right. So maybe it's like the son just fucking going and.
Yeah.
Because obviously the son's probably been around, a hell of a long time. Like he's like an immortal dark sider or whatever. Um, Maybe he's the one who just fucking pushing the essence through and all that shit and trying to get like his, because you saw in the cartoons there was a constant battle between light and dark, even though they, their brother and sister and all that stuff. Like they were trying, well, the dark side was trying to get more powerful than light side, just sort of like the Sith and Jedi thing.
Right.
So I mean, that could be a connection as well, since again, Lucas wanted to do it, and it's already in canon officially.
Yeah.
So that'd be pretty
Yeah.
fucking sweet.
And that's good too, because I mean, the son, the daughter, and the father. I mean, that goes back to like the beginning.
Right.
So if they incorporated that, I mean, we're talking like the beginning of the Star Wars timeline, pretty much, up until, basically the movies. I mean, that's a ton of fucking material
And
that
what
you can just fuck around with.
and what a way to start out like a KOTOR series or whatever.
Right.
Like explain, okay, this happened way back when. Oh, how the fuck did this come along? Like, why did the Force all of a sudden decide it needed two sides and a balance and not just be the Force? And
Right.
all that shit. Like, it could be, like, ridiculous.
No, and it's going to do the same thing, the books have done in the past. Like I was saying to you, after I read Plagueis, I mean, I see episode 1 especially in a totally different fucking light.
Right.
Because I have all these stories in the back of my head, that are going on behind the scenes that you're not seeing. So that I actually went back and watched The Phantom Menace, and for the first time in a very long time, I was really fucking into that movie because of the added stories. So I'm thinking, we're gonna be done with the Star Wars, well, the Skywalker saga, okay? And there's a lot of shit that was filled in by EU and Legends and all that stuff. But I mean, if they have a long-standing series that will put everything together after this, it's going to be fucking mind-blowing. Like people might look at The Last Jedi and be like, holy shit, this movie is much better
Right.
with all this information. Because I feel with The Last Jedi especially, that was really a book that you needed behind the scenes shit, because there was a lot of stuff you just don't understand. And they can do that in this series. Like, who the fuck is Snoke? Who the fuck are the, Knights of Ren? This could all go back to the time of the Old Republic.
Right. I know, even, like, not getting too much on the movies, because we're talking about the series here, but I finally read the Bloodline book with Leia, and sort of before the Resistance started. And that makes Force Awakens better, because I know, like, what the situation was going on and, what the actual planets were that the Starkiller base fucking blew up.
Right.
Like, they didn't explain that shit at all in the movies, but just reading the books and stuff, it makes this. It was like, okay, now that's a fucking big deal, because I know what the fuck it was. Obviously, it was a big deal, like in the movie, but you didn't understand why necessarily, unless you read those books. And again, you need to fucking read and watch everything, and hopefully you can fill in the blanks.
Right. Right.
So,
And I think this series, episode 9, their big selling point is like, it's a course correction, and everything, all the fucking movies are coming together. That was the big thing since, they started the new series, is that by the end, all of these are gonna all make sense and come together, and stuff like that. And I think this series will make sense of the technicality of shit if they do it right. The technicalities of, the Chosen One prophecies, the dark side, the fucking light side, who's this character, why this, and all that shit. It has a huge opportunity to like really put some pieces into place that put everything together.
I mean, if you think back, way back when, too, George Lucas, he wanted to make 9 movies.
Right.
From the get-go, he had a plan. Given the plan wasn't Disney to buy Lucasfilms or whatever and take it over, but him being like advisor or whatever you want to call him, I'm sure he's throwing in his ideas and being like, this is what I was thinking, this is it. And they, I would assume, use a lot of that because, Last Jedi got a lot of backlash. They want this thing to hook more people to Star Wars and all that stuff. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm definitely excited. One for Episode 9 again, and this KOTOR series. If somehow this sort of gives a launching point to the series, because
Yeah,
now you're like, okay, I want to see how this shit happened, how this all connected, and all that stuff. And
yeah,
that's what I said last cast about the Obi-Wan thing. If Obi-Wan comes back as a Force ghost, now people are be reminded of him. The people that for some reason don't know who he is will know who he is, and they'll want to be tuning into the Obi-Wan series if they make a
right.
miniseries. So I mean, they can do that on multiple fronts to like remind people of fucking things, just sort of like they did with Marvel. At the end of each movie, they would have like, oh, Thor's hammer's there. Okay, well, Thor's gonna be around. Oh, here's a Thor movie.
Right.
They're doing it with Marvel. Why wouldn't they? And they're being successful with it. Why wouldn't they do that? The same sort of thing with Star Wars with these Easter eggs and shit like that. And then all of a sudden, oh, here's a movie or a series about them. I mean, it makes perfect sense. It's the same fucking team, so to speak.
Yeah. The only thing that makes me a little nervous about this series is if they're going to just say fuck all the EU shit and they just make up their own stuff to a certain extent. Like maybe, like maybe in another person's perspective. And the reason I say that is if you have played the video games or you read the books, they're in a big scope. They're in a cinematic scope,
Right.
and there are a lot of shows out, that do have big budgets and they look fantastic and all this, but we're talking Star Wars. You can't fuck around with this. Lightsabers got to look good. The fucking ship's got to look good. All that shit's got to look good. I don't know how much money they're spending on this. It is Disney, so they might be throwing down a shit ton of money. But they might be going on a smaller scale, and that makes me nervous. And I don't want to see that. I want to see all the grandioso that is in the books in the video games. That's what I'm expecting. I also, and that's why I'm saying maybe they'll go with a different perspective from maybe a character you don't know. Like Revan is there and Bastila is there and Malik's there, but it could be a brand new character that you're running through this adventure with. And I don't know if I'm going to like that. I would say they would do that to maybe bring down the budget a little bit, but I think you'd be fucking us because I don't want like Revan to be the main character, but I want him to be a big part of the story. Or Malik or any of these big names. I don't want it to be like a smaller version of this story.
Well, I hope they learn their lesson with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which, the Shield
Which is a prime example.
the Shield is cool and but it's cool with other big important things around. Like seeing the
Right.
newspaper, oh, here, the Hulk was around. He saved the fucking city again. That's not enough to keep my interest in the fucking show.
And
So,
that's why I totally was into the Shield like the first season,
me
and I
too.
figured that out, and I'm like, this is a watered down version of the Avengers.
Right.
I don't want that for this series.
So hopefully they don't go that route. I know exactly what you're talking about. If anyone's watched that show, they probably agree. I mean, I wouldn't see why they wouldn't. I know Uncle Tony has. We talked about that a little bit on one of the shows, one of the casts. I mean, but they could definitely do that. And because there's so many rumors for miniseries, and of course they want people to buy the streaming service, I hope they don't throw out too much stuff and then it's all shit,
Yeah,
or
watered
at
down.
least some of it's shit. I mean,
It's basically like let's say fucking any of the Star Wars movies and putting it in the perspective of like a fucking Imperial foot soldier.
right.
You don't want to see. You want to see fucking Vader and fucking Luke and all that shit. You don't want to follow this fucking guy. I mean, they're basically with that new series, The Mandalorian. They're basically doing it in that show, which makes sense. You know what I mean? It's not going to be Boba Fett. It's not going to be Jango Fett. It's going to be a regular Mandalorian, and whatever story they're going to tell with that, which is fine. But you can't sit there and take a franchise. Now it is a franchise. The Old Republic and the Knights of the Old Republic is a franchise of that scope with, characters that people are invested in, and then do it, through a fucking nobody.
Right.
Like, that would be a horrible idea in my eyes.
Yeah, and they either needed to improve the characters or not use them at all and just make up their own shit for
Right.
whatever and let people enjoy it if
Right.
possible. Because there's been, I mean, some things that they brought into, Rebels and Clone Wars cartoons was decent, but other shit was just like, okay, that's not really how they were in the books.
Right.
They're not canon now, but you made them worse, so it's not worth bringing them back because now they look like shitheads.
Well, it's even when they had Bane. You know what I mean? Like, he looked nothing like the
Right.
descriptions in the books or any of that. That sort of irked me a little bit. It's like I wanted to see the big bald-headed, fucking Bane, or like the guy with the obelisks, and it was nothing like that.
I mean, he did so. I'd have to look back at it, but it did sort of look like after the obelisk was taken off because his body was all fucked up
Oh, see,
a little bit, but it
if I'm
sort
not
of
if
looked
I'm not
like
mistaken, I think he had a weird mask on and like fucking
Yeah.
horns and shit. Like, I don't know. I'd have to go back too, but that's what I'm thinking.
at least in the that was his Yoda's. I mean, his holocron Yoda was tapping into, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So that time, at least in the books, he was full basilisk. Because remember, he was like fucking going crazy in the
Right.
books every time he was failing. And I'm pretty sure he still had those on him. As far,
Right.
of course, that's not canon, but at least connecting the dots, sort of thing.
I
But
understand if they don't want to use certain aspects of the EU, but if you are going to bring a character, at least make his likeliness fucking close.
right.
Like, yeah, I'm seriously after this. I'm going to go back and probably get pissed off again and watch this thing. Because I was just like, this is not fucking Bane. I would, at least if they bring these people, like in this series too, you've got to be true to the fucking source. If you're going to use a source, now I'm talking just visual. Like, Revan has to look like Revan. Don't put a different mask on him. Don't, he's got to look like Revan. He's got to be fucking relatable. If fucking Malgus there comes back, he's got to have his breather and the bald head and fucking look like a badass. With this semi-Darth Vader fucking outfit on.
Yeah.
Don't change him. Don't have him have fucking curly fucking blonde hair, or something stupid.
They really overused the breather thing, by the way. That's like the fucking. It's like the hand chopped off level.
Yeah.
It's like Malgus has it. Fucking Malik gets it because he gets fucked up by Revan.
Yeah,
Obviously
Plagueis.
Vader. Plagueis has it. And that's just like off the top of my head thinking about who has it. And it's like, what the fuck? Do something
Yeah.
else. I mean, they look badass with it. Like, look at Malgus. He's a fucking beast. And so is, Malik looks pretty cool too. And Vader, of course, is Vader. And Plagueis
Yeah, but it's
looks
like, come
pretty
up
cool.
with something else. Stop cutting people's
Right.
hands off.
Their hands.
Cut off a fucking leg.
Seriously.
Something.
I guess everyone can't be Obi-Wan, though. That's
Well,
the thing. So another thing I want to see in this is a HK-47,
Oh, God, yes.
which people don't know was pretty much a droid that Revan made, I believe, that was like a Jedi hunter.
Yeah, he was an assassin droid.
Yeah, and he just so fucking awesome. And I hope he's around. Because it's, I don't know, there's not enough good bounty hunters in movies, like in this movie. These movies, rather. Like, you see, like, a lot of cool ones on, the bridge of Vader's ship there. But besides Boba Fett, no one else gets any fucking screen time.
Yeah.
And, you see him a little bit in Clone Wars and Rebels and stuff like that, but no, I want to see him do fucking cool shit and sort of learn why they're who they are. The best bounty hunters in the friggin' galaxy, basically. I mean,
Yeah, plus, in the video games especially, he was pretty fucking entertaining because
Yeah.
he was a prick, and he had like a dark humor, and I think, you gotta, obviously it's Star Wars, so you gotta have some kind of fucking humor in it, and I think that if they do it right, with with the likeliness, you know, try to emulate the fucking voice, because that was one of the funniest parts. Is his voice was like very monotone, like very droidish, but he had that dark fucking humor. Um, he's just a great character.
Well, every movie has, and even series has a fucking droid, like a main droid character.
Yeah,
So hopefully this is one of them at least in the series if they decide to make this series.
yeah, and I wouldn't even mind, to be honest with you, if they did it through his perspective.
That'd be fucking awesome.
Because if they're gonna do that, um, he's the closest to all the main characters in the video games. Well, the video game, the first one.
Right.
Now, and he was in the second one too. So it can be told through his perspective. But then the main characters are fucking there. You know what I mean? So that's another option.
Well, I forgot where I read it or saw it, but supposedly episode 1 through 9 was supposed to be all like R2D2 C3PO's perspective.
Right.
That was
Right.
one of the things, like, so they were supposed to be in all of them and be like major characters. So that was pretty interesting. And
See, that would have
that,
been horrible, though.
I mean, it does sort of
Just
make sense
think
because
of
they're all around.
all fucking three. Let's just go to the originals. All three of those movies being basically the star of it is C3PO. That's horrid.
Well, R2D2 came around first, but because he was on the ship he saved the ship going through the Trade Federation blockade on Naboo. Like,
Right,
oh, what's
but
his number?
he doesn't even speak English. So
But
you're gonna do a fucking trilogy through this guy?
No,
I
but
mean,
he reminds me of Groot, like he's always like, I am Groot, and they're like, hey, calm down, relax.
yeah.
And like if it'd be the same sort of like character in a way, like he just be like, beep, 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 like, oh, watch your language.
But that's
It
good
would
as
be
a
ridiculous, but
supporting character. You know what I mean?
but I'm saying like they were thinking about it for some reason before, so potentially they could do this for that with HK-47, which would be pretty fucking sweet.
Yeah.
Little off topic, but sort of helping you out with your theory there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know,
They have to do it right. I mean, that's what we're talking about.
yeah, pretty
Is
much.
that who's doing this? It's the main fucking. I always forget his name. No, it's Ryan. Who the fuck is doing this series?
Did they officially
who
say
knows?
yet? Because all I could find out that it was like a rumor so far.
Yeah. But they got to do it right. And if you're gonna sit there and have the balls to say, "Oh, we're gonna have an Old Republic fucking thing," instantly there was names that popped into my head. You know what I mean? As a diehard Star Wars fan, is that if you're gonna say that you're making a fucking my boss is a huge Star Wars fan, 50 years old, but he's like us. And so the other day I did that, and he's like, "Oh my God, could you imagine?" Name drop, name drop, name drop.
Nice.
You know, you can't sit there and say, "Oh, the Old Republic," and then not have any of these fucking people in it. I mean, it's just it'd be a smack in the dick, like it really would be.
That would be like The Last Jedi was the last straw for a decent amount of people. Not that I totally agree with it, but that would be like the last straw for a lot more people, I think, that grew up with the games and read the stories and all that stuff. If none of these characters were in it, I mean, at least Bane is actual canon, and the Rule of Two is canon, and other essences of that. But for none of these characters to actually be real, well, real in the Star Wars universe, I mean, that'd
And
be
using
shit.
the name and not using the characters.
Right.
You know, I mean, I would be interested in like the infancy of the Republic. You know, maybe through a senator's fucking perspective and all that. But eventually, you got to have, Revan in there. You got to have Malik in there. You got to be fucking true to the source. Which, they've opened up more so to the EU in the Legends stuff. So I don't think that they're going to totally ignore it. And like you said, they've already pissed off a lot of people with The Last Jedi. You know, where it's like, some people are like, I don't even fucking care about Episode 9.
Yeah.
Which is ludicrous if you're a fucking fan. Um, that's like saying I'm not looking forward to Revenge of the Sith after fucking Attack of the Clones. Like I still was. But yeah, you can't. You got to do the fans right in this sense. I mean, they did, learn a lesson with Solo because they were cranking out so much goddamn shit that I feel that, everything about Solo coming out was wrong. It was a great movie. I liked the movie. But the timing was wrong. The fucking, it was a year after Last Jedi. People were pissed off about that. And they were like, fuck this fucking Solo movie. And
it was so close to Infinity War, too. Like a week after or something like that. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
And then
I think they're calming. Well, they've said that. They've slowed it down. Like a lot of the projects they had, they're on fucking hold right now. And they're taking their time. So I hope that they're grabbing all these old Republic books and video games and all that shit and really studying it and saying, okay, well, this is the direction we're going to go in because, I'm not going to get fired for making another fucking Solo project.
It's too bad because Solo was good.
It was I've watched it now like 5 times, and every single time, like any other Star Wars movie or Marvel movie or any like you're picking up on stuff, and now I'm getting used to like the scene where he meets Chewie is great, and fucking like Lando was great. It was a great movie. It was bad on the part of the fucking studio, just timing and everything.
I think if that came out before The Last Jedi, it would have got a lot better people's reviews and shit like that.
Right.
And more people, it probably would have made more money in the box office and all that stuff. There was just a lot of people boycotting Star Wars because they didn't like The Last Jedi.
Right. I mean, if they, and I've seen this before, where they have a completed movie, they're ready to release it, and something happens, and they hold on to it for like 2 or 3 years. I think immediately when they got the backlash of The Last Jedi, they should have said, fucking, we're not putting Solo out right now. You know what I mean? Especially against Infinity Wars and all this shit.
Right.
And they went against themselves, for Christ's sake. It was stupid fucking decisions.
Yeah,
like, even hold it until after Episode 9. After everybody's fucking better about the Star Wars series and they forget about the Last Jedi shit, throw out Solo after that. I guarantee it would have tripled the money it made.
And it still didn't do bad. I mean, for a Star Wars movie, I guess, but it still made a hell of a lot of money.
Right.
What was I going to say? And I guess for some reason they didn't realize that a lot of the same fans are seeing the Marvel movies and Star Wars movies.
Right.
So it's like, not that it's going to break the bank, but you go in every freaking week every month to see a goddamn movie in that wheel yard or whatever. It's a little bit much.
Well, it's even with the Marvel movies. I mean, up until like, let's say, I want to say fucking Black Panther. I was starting to get fucking just totally burnt out from them.
Yeah.
Because you're having a movie every fucking year. And it's like,
multiple
you're
movies
expecting more and more and more. Like to me, by Civil War, I was like, ugh. Like I don't. When I initially saw that movie, I didn't enjoy it because I just saw one fucking the year before. And it's just like overkill. And I think Disney is realizing that shit, where it's like we got to stop hammering this shit down people's fucking throats because there is such a thing as oversaturation.
Yeah.
And I think that's what was happening in both of those franchises.
I mean, they got to a good point in Marvel. And Infinity War was amazing. Not to talk too much about Marvel and shit like that, but I think they were trying to copy that message or that plan with Star Wars.
Right.
And it just doesn't connect the same as Marvel does. Like, there's not a super team you can build and make a super movie at the end like there is with Avengers. Like, what the hell are you going to do? Make, like, fucking 35 Jedi and then 35 Sith? And it'll be a super fucking movie together and they have to fight each other or something. I mean, there's no way to fucking do that.
Yeah. And that's what it is, too, is like, you're more intrigued with the Marvel movies because at the end of it, you're like, okay, so they're going to introduce yet another character, which is going to spawn another movie, and it was just, yeah, it's different. You know what I mean? There's certain parts of Star Wars that people just, I guess, aren't interested in. You know, it's the only way I can really put it, is that they're just, you know, I don't know, they're just not interested.
Yeah, I mean not gonna mostly. I mean the hardcore fans will, but they're not gonna sit there and be like for instance that Bloodline book I just read. Um, it's a lot of political shit in there. Who
Right,
the hell's gonna want to watch like a movie of that? Of
right,
Leia going back and forth with senators and doing things behind the scenes and all that shit. I mean, episode of Clone Wars is fine when Padme does that, but a whole movie or even a whole series about that,
no,
it's not gonna fucking fly. I mean, even like a lot of the bounty hunters and stuff like that. A lot of people are not gonna like that unless they're into bounty hunting and what they do.
right,
Like mostly they like the good versus bad thing. Sith, Jedi, they like laser swords and fucking blasters and shit like that.
right.
But
Well, it's like that's why Rogue One was so good. You know, you didn't have, besides Vader, you really didn't have a fucking Force user, really, in
right,
that movie. It wasn't the typical, one-on-one fucking lightsaber duels and all that shit. But what it was is that from beginning to end, it was action. You know what I mean? It wasn't they had political shit in there, but it was very minuscule. It just got right to the point and then got right back into the journey that that group of people did. Um, Solo did the same thing. Fucking besides Maul, there wasn't a lightsaber in the fucking thing. Um, but it kept going, and that's why I think a lot of people dislike the prequels so much because there was so much fucking political shit. It's like, all right, let's get to the fucking fighting.
right.
It's there's a way that you can tell that kind of shit that's not going to bog down the movie. Like I even found as good as a book Plagueis was, there was still a lot of political shit in there that after a while, like I'm listening in my car and you're sort of not paying attention because you're like, okay, so when is this going to happen?
Right.
When are they going to fucking mention Maul? When are they going to mention Anakin? When is he going to kill Plagueis? You're waiting for that shit. You don't want to hear the fucking, about the Trade Federation fucking politic bullshit.
I mean, it was cool because like it sort of connected the dots with episode one with the Trade Federation and stuff like that. But they sort of, explaining how Sidious killed Plagueis before the book even started, I think sort of killed it for me a little bit. I mean, yes, it
Yeah,
was like you knew it happened eventually. He said it fucking happened, like in the Revenge of the Sith. But just to sort of hear how it happened, I
yeah,
don't know. It sort
I
of was
agree.
just like I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, okay, that's great, and you see, you understand how it happens like through the book or whatever. But it was sort of a letdown for me in a way.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. When it comes to that book, very slow beginning. Um, and we're totally off topic now.
Yeah, but
Very slow beginning, but then it built up and it got really fucking interesting. But it took the whole, for me, was the relation to the movie shit that really started, turning the gears on this fucking book for me. They started mentioning Maul and Dooku and it was getting closer and closer to basically episode one. And that's when it really started becoming like a really good book.
yeah, the cloning and having to lessen the Jedi numbers and all that stuff.
Right. The Sifo Dyas stuff.
Yeah,
Like that too. That made, that shitty Attack of the Clones movie a little bit better for me because they explained more of the whole interaction with Dooku and Sifo Dyas and the fucking, the cloners and all that shit. It explained it a little better. In the movie, you're like, oh, Sifo Dyas, he was the one that did it, but who the fuck is he? He's dead.
yeah,
You know?
and even Dooku's story and stuff you had no idea about.
Right, right. And it made Dooku a better, character. They did more in the Clone Wars with him that made his character, a little deeper. But yeah, that that book made him a better character to me.
All right, so I guess before we get too far off topic again, is there anything else you want to see from this series?
Uh,
Just don't fuck it up.
yeah, just don't fuck it up. I mean, number one, Revan. You know, he's ever since I played the video games, I read the books. He's become one of my favorite characters. You know, bad or good in the series, because there's a lot of depth in like character wise that you could tell a really good story. You could take, you know, all the EU stuff as a reference, but you could really put some depth into him. Because like for instance, the book Old Republic Revan goes into after, you know, the video games, after he's been redeemed and all that shit, and basically him dealing with life, you know, after turning from a Jedi to a Sith and then having amnesia and then fucking, you know, coming back to glory and basically, you know, and what's an even better story is they really don't get into him taking off to the unknown regions. I mean, that's a fucking series in itself.
Yeah,
you could start off just him going into the unknown regions and fucking, you know, whatever the hell happens there.
Well, I mean, the struggle with, just to go back a little bit, what I said, you know, the Mandalorians were basically attacking the Republic because the Sith Emperor brainwashed their leadership into doing it. And the Jedi didn't want to get involved. So Malik and Revan and, you know, however many other Jedi decided, fuck you, Council, we're going to go help these guys. And Revan was a leader that essentially saved the fucking Republic from being taken over.
Right.
And then he decided, you know, I think he went to go sort of stomp out the last remnants of the Sith and the Mandalorians, and decided, got turned, went to the unknown regions, and all that shit happened. And he got the fucking his own fleet and all that stuff from the Starforge. I mean, that, if you told that's a fucking, at least a season, you know what I mean?
Right.
So they could even just fucking start there. That'd be a fucking good spot.
Well, basically in the book, too, he takes off after a while. I'm not sure, you know, I read it a while ago, and I just forget. But I'm not sure if he goes back to the unknown regions or whatever, but there's no real story about that. Basically, at the end of the book, he just takes off. In Knights of the Old Republic 2, the Sith Lords, he had already taken off. Like, he had, you know, you had the events of the first game. He redeemed himself. And then the Revan book, from what I'm putting together, was basically in between those two games. Because then you got the Revan that, you know, goes back to Coruscant. He's trying to fucking, you know, make sense of shit and whatever. But then he does eventually take off. And that story has never been told. That's another avenue, you know?
I mean, even thinking about it a little bit more, the Rakata Empire, that didn't really... It was hinted at here and there. They had all these super weapons and shit, and then they lost power somehow.
Right.
And they had Force users and all this shit, too. So that'd be interesting to dive into that. That was before Revan and all that stuff. And they're the ones, I believe, that actually made the Starforge that he found.
Yeah.
That could just throw out fucking, you know, ships after ships after ships. And it'd be interesting to, you know, if they started there as well.
Yeah.
And even,
so many stories.
Yeah, even closer to episode 1, not that close, they could see when fucking Yoda was born. He's 900 years old. I mean, Jesus Christ. So, I mean, they could show his origins a little bit, too. That'd be fucking cool.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, there's plenty of things to do.
I would be so excited to be on the team that's creating this.
Yeah.
Because you have so much fucking material. Like, it's easy. Like, for people like us, you know, that are hardcore Star Wars fans and all that stuff, if they came to us and said, hey, make a fucking Old Republic series. Holy shit, where do I fucking start? Because there's so much material from that, from thousands of years that you could, I mean, it would be so easy. If they fuck this up, like, I give up on life. You know, because how do you fuck this up?
And that's before like even trying to think about it or doing any research. That's just like, oh, I remember playing this game. I like these characters. I remember like reading this book. I like these characters.
Yeah.
Imagine sitting down with the plethora of information for the old Republic and being like, oh wow, I can really dig deep into this and going like that way. It'd be
Well,
so much fucking shit.
my big thing, if I was on this creative team, this is a big what if. Um, if I was on this creative team, like you're just in the wrestling business, they call it pops. I think I've mentioned this before on the show. So you literally have so much material that you're just throwing out constant pops. You know what I mean? Like you're just throwing out shit for people to go, fuck yes, that was great. So all you'd have to do is just take all of this information and say, what's going to get me the biggest reaction? You know, and we're going to write a story. Because at the end, they're going to go, fuck yeah, that was good. What's next? You go for the next fucking big pop. Oh, fuck yes, what's next? Like, that's how easy this would be to write.
Yeah.
Because it's not like you're sitting there and you're like, oh shit, I'm thinking of a whole new fucking story. And of course, like, your main thing is telling a good story and getting a reaction. You know, The Last Jedi got a negative one. But you have the material in front of you. And like, for instance, when I first played Knights of the Old Republic, the story was so goddamn good. I think that was the first real story in a video game that I was like, fuck, this is like a movie. You know, and when there was a twist that the guy that, you know, was basically the Jedi was actually Revan, you're like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
that was a really good twist. And, you know, I was thinking about that. Like, that's the real big pop from that video game is like, holy shit, the guy that's been doing this whole time is actually Revan. You know what I mean? And then you find out the Jedi actually took him and, you know, took his fucking memories out and all that shit. You're like, wow, that's something that's never been fucking told.
Some dark shit.
That's what I was saying in the beginning that I like we already know. Like if you know the video game, you know the stories, you're like, all right, I already seen it. But you made a good point. We also knew basically what was going to happen to Vader, but it didn't make Revenge of the Sith any less of a good fucking movie. You know,
less emotional or anything like that.
You knew that Obi-Wan and him were fighting in a volcano. You know, but when it happened, you're like, shit, I actually get to see it. You know, first off, because it was never shown. So yeah, even if they told that, even if they just went with the first video game, just told that whole story, fucking just to like see it cinematically, like it'd blow my fucking mind.
I think the Game of Thrones people, the two brothers, whatever hell they are,
That's who's doing it.
they
Right.
would be great to do this. If it's official, I don't know, but if they did this, because they're good at following books and making things come to life from that sort of thing, from
Right.
books and from other material, and making you love it. So I think they would
Yeah.
be fucking great at doing that, with the help of Dave Filoni and everyone else.
Right.
But Resistance, I think, is pretty much caught up to Force Awakens, give or take, maybe another season or something. So I mean, who knows what he's going to be doing next? Because I'm sure he's high in demand as far as projects go.
You know, it's sad to say that I haven't watched one episode of that because I just read it wasn't that good.
I've seen most of them, but I'm still not hooked or anything. Like Rebels hooked me pretty quickly. Clone
Yeah.
Wars did, of course, because there was a lot of characters you know.
Right. Right.
And the whole, Poe Dameron's going to be in it. He's in like one out of like 35 episodes. I think you see Phasma once. So it's like BB-8 is like the star power in that show.
Yeah.
Like he's
It's a kids show.
yeah,
you know?
which all the other ones are to an extent too, but I don't know, it just doesn't do it the same for me at least. I know people that love it, and I'm not gonna fucking shit on them for liking it. And supposedly the last like couple episodes have been really good, so I still gotta watch it before. I want to watch the full season before I give it like a grade or something,
Right.
because a lot of these things do start out slowly and then they get good. Just like Rebels, I was like, I'm not sure about this show, and then the last episode, not to get too fucking off topic as usual, the last episode, Kanan, was just when he thought Ezra died. He's like, okay, that was a mistake, Grand Inquisitor, you fucking asshole. I have nothing to lose now, and that's when he fucking went ape shit with the Force and all that stuff.
It was the same way with Rebels. Like it was it was a very slow build, but by the end you were like totally hooked.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I gotta see where this goes. But yeah, so let's, we're getting on close to an hour here. So I think that's a good place to stop. So if anyone has any anything they would like to see that we haven't mentioned or that we mentioned they want to reiterate or anything, let us know on social media, email us, show suggestions, comments, etc., share, all that happy shit.
No dick pics. I don't want that.
He gets flooded already. He doesn't have time to look at them all.
I take pictures of my own dick and send it to myself.
Yeah, he's like, oh, another one. It looks exact same, but I don't know. They must be brothers or something. I don't know what the fuck's going on. On that note, I'm Moose. That's the
I'm the
Sleaze.
motherfucking Sleaze.
Motherfucking Sleaze. Geeking out.